If you're anything like me, you're probably a huge Marvel fan. One of my favorite characters is the Incredible Hulk. He's not my favorite, but he's one of them. That title belongs to Doctor Strange. He's the best Avenger, in my opinion. Argue with your mama. Now, here's the thing about Bruce Banner, though. He's literally one of the smartest men on the planet. He's a genius, a doctor, and an amazing scientist. In the lab, he is absolutely untouchable. But the second that things get intense, the second that someone pushes the wrong button, he doesn't just lose his temper, he becomes something that he can't even control. Something that destroys everything around him, including the people he loves most. And every time it happens, he has to live with the wreckage that he or his worst half left behind. My name is Marquez Pye. I came from a broken home. I'm a child abuse survivor, and I almost let the pain of my past destroy my family. Now I help high-performing fathers master and control their emotions before it costs them their families. A lot of successful fathers are just like Bruce Banner. They have their own alter ego, and he shows up when things get intense, when the pressure becomes too much, when life gets too hard, when your wife says the wrong thing, and when your kids push the wrong button. And just like Bruce Banner, you can't control when it shows up. And then you're left standing there looking at the damage that it caused, wondering what just happened, trying to figure out why you can't stop the anger outbursts, the affairs, the drug addictions, the porn addiction, the overworking addiction that's typically labeled as workaholism, etc., etc. My goal with this video is super simple. I want to help you understand why your alter ego keeps showing up uninvited and show you how to stop allowing him to control your life, your decisions, and keep forcing you to commit these destructive behaviors that are destroying your marriage and your relationship with your kids. Now, I'm about to say something that contradicts the way that society has taught all of us. Most people think successful men have it all together. They think that their success absolves them from experiencing pain and having any problems. They think that because you have a good income, a high net worth, and nice things, that you have fewer problems than the average man. But this is what I found out a long time ago. Successful men have the same problems as everyone else. Why? Because no matter how much they achieve, no matter how much you make, they're still just human beings at the end of the day. And most of the time, they don't have less problems. They typically have more problems. Like May said, it's like the more money we come across, the more problems we see. Yeah, y'all know I can't sing. But anyway, that's real though, right? See, a lot of men who have it all together on the outside are damaged and broken on the inside. See, here's what happened. They spent their whole life learning how to play the game society taught them to play. That's why they focus so much on their career, on college, on their income, on their business or businesses, on their churches, and their investments. They seemingly check all the right boxes. They're winning the game of life, but because they were so busy learning how to play that game, they spent absolutely no time discovering themselves, no time learning how to actually enjoy their success, no time learning how to handle the pressure and responsibilities of relationships, and no time learning how to build lasting and meaningful relationships. Well, at least not the ones that have nothing to do with their business or advancing their career. And that's why their marriages tend to suffer. That's why their relationships with their kids suffer. That's why their homes are broken. And it doesn't matter how smart they are. It doesn't matter how many degrees they have. And it doesn't matter how big their bank account is either. They can't for the life of them figure out how to win in both places. And that's the real reason why successful fathers win in public, but are losing by a landslide in private. But don't worry, that's what I'm here for. But I don't want to waste any more of your time because not everybody who is sick wants to go see a doctor. In other words, you can know you have a problem and still choose to live with it. So I need to tell you who this video is for. This video is for you if you actually want to change your behavior, if you want a better marriage, if you want to be a better father, if you want to stop the self-sabotage, stop watching porn, stop running to alcohol or drugs, stop destroying the things and the people you love because of your anger and your lack of emotional control. This is for you if you want to overcome the limiting beliefs that are holding you back. If you're tired of winning publicly and losing privately. If you're tired of being the man everybody else sees in public and having to hide the man your family sees in private. If any of that sounds like you, stick around because I'm going to help you with all of that in this video. But if none of that sounds like you right now, then that would be a good time to do what Ludacris said and roll out. We'll holler at you. Now, before I tell you my story, I need to be clear about something. This is not a men's bashing channel. This is a men's building channel. I don't care what anybody says. The father is the head of the family. And if he is broken, the family will be too. That's why I always say, unbreakable fathers create unbreakable families. My goal is not to beat you up. My goal is to build you up so you can go home and build your family up. And I say that because everything that I'm about to share with you, every story, every bit of scientific research, every framework, is all designed to do one thing and one thing only. And that is to build you into the man that you and your family actually need you to be. Not tear you down and not make you think that everything is all your fault. With that being said, let me tell you how I'm so confident that I can help you. I was just like you. I was winning the game of life and losing the game that mattered the most, the one at home. I was winning at work and I was losing at home. I got married back in 2010. I was making six figures before I started my business. I was a truck driver. I was a freight conductor at CSX. I owned a transportation company. I owned a successful drop shipping store. I was a youth pastor and minister at my church, and I still am to this day. I was a youth baseball coach, and I was respected in my community. On the outside, it looked like I had it all together. But on the inside, I was damaged, broken, and in a lot of pain. See, I came from a broken family myself. I went through child abuse. I watched my parents get divorced. I moved around a lot as a kid. Matter of fact, I went to like 4 or 5 different elementary schools, all in my 3rd grade year. I felt like nobody understood me. I felt like nobody loved me. I grew up feeling like I wasn't good enough. And for years, I was letting my childhood, my experiences, and the pain of my past shape my identity and the beliefs that I had about myself, control my life, and stop me from being the person I desired to be, which stopped me from having the life that I desired to have. And you want to know what the scariest part was? I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. I really didn't. I really didn't understand what was happening. I never really understood that my childhood had my adulthood in a chokehold. You got to understand that trauma doesn't knock on the door and ask for permission to walk in your house. It just walks in and says, "This is my house. I'm the one who calls the shots." It disguises itself. It hides itself, and it masks itself as anger, as control issues, as shutting down or escaping. And I was this close to letting my pain in my childhood destroy my adulthood. But here's what I learned after going through everything that I went through. No matter how much I wanted to stop, the explosive anger, the destructive behaviors, watching porn, having a lack of emotional control, I couldn't stop on my own, no matter how bad I wanted to. I tried willpower. I tried books. I tried therapy. I tried YouTube videos. I tried anger management classes, and even more prayer and more church services. I'm going to piss a lot of religious people off with this one, but I don't really care. Religion will have you feeling like if you just perform, that everything will be all right. And that's why I believe that there are so many pastors, Christians, and leaders who are suffering silently today. They want to get some help, but they are too afraid of what the so-called church will say to them and about them if they admit that they are in pain and trouble and that they are broken and need to be repaired. All right, I'm off that tangent for now. I tried as hard as I possibly could to change, but I couldn't because I was trying to change what I did without changing who I was. And that makes all the difference in the world. Can I help you understand why it works that way? Look, I know it might sound simple, and I know it might even sound like I'm gaslighting you. I promise you I'm not, though. And I know you're probably sitting there saying, just change your identity and the behavior changes automatically. Yeah, right. I understand why you would think that, but let me give you an example so you can see how this actually works. I want you to imagine that you are a fish. So you're a fish, and in this example, you are my pet, right? So you're my pet fish. Let's say I took you out of the fishbowl and climbed up to the top of the tree, and I decided to drop you from the highest branch in the tree, and then I told you to fly. You think I was crazy, right? Of course you would. And you would be right. But here's the thing. No matter how bad you would want to fly, you wouldn't be able to. No matter how much you wouldn't want to die, you still wouldn't be able to fly. Hey, that's a bar. Instead of flying, you would immediately begin free falling. But the thing is, you would fail, but it wouldn't be because you were too weak. It wouldn't be because you didn't want it bad enough. And it wouldn't be because you didn't have enough discipline. It wouldn't be because you skipped church on Sunday. It wouldn't be because you prayed and God didn't hear you. And it would have absolutely nothing to do with how bad you are at manifesting things. There is only one reason, and one reason only, why you wouldn't be able to fly. And it's because you are a fish. And it's as simple as that, my guy. And no matter how badly you would want to fly, you wouldn't be able to do it. You'll never have the ability to fly. Why? Because you're a fish, and fish don't fly. So the moral of the story is the fish, which is you, can't fly because of who he is. In other words, who you are can either stop you or push you. But if I took you and I put you in some water, which is your natural habitat, the environment that you would be created for as a fish, what do you think would happen? You wouldn't have to beg to swim. You wouldn't have to pray to swim. You wouldn't have to manifest to swim. And you wouldn't have to go through a coaching program to learn how to swim. You would just swim because you are a fish. And swimming is what fish do. Because you are, you would just do. And that's the same way that it works with your identity and your behavior. You have to become first so that you can just do. So if you want to change what you do, that means you have to change who you are first. Change who you are, and the behaviors that you want will have to align with who you are. They have no choice. That's why James Clear says, be, do, have. Be first, do second, and the results will follow. Does that make sense? I figured it would, because that's exactly what happened for me. I went from being separated 3 different times and almost losing my family completely to now being married for 16 years and having an amazing, beautiful, wonderful family. I went from being a preacher who lived one way on Wednesdays and Sundays and as a different person the rest of the week to being able to show up as the man that I wanted to be Monday through Sunday. I went from being a bad dad and a bad husband to being a dad and a husband that my family can respect and be proud of. I'm still not perfect. And anyone, and I do mean anyone, that would ever tell you they are is lying. And as the old church folks would say, the truth just ain't in them. But I'm not who I was anymore. And today, I'm going to show you how to become the man that you and your family want you to be. Hey, real quick, if you're watching this and you're already thinking, okay, Marquez, I get it. I need help with this. I built something specifically with you in mind. It's my inner circle for high-performing and successful fathers just like you who are winning in public and losing in private. It's called The Fatherhood. It's a 12-month identity transformation coaching program. In it, we'll go through the 3 stages of identity transformation that I call the ABCs of identity transformation. I'll help you audit, build, and create the identity that you want and the one that you need to have the life that you desire. If that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, I left a link for you down in the description below. And you could always just go to my Instagram and DM me the word unbreakable to learn more. All right, let's geek out for a second. I'll try my best not to overcomplicate it and keep it as simple as possible. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a cell biologist out of Stanford, he did some research that completely changed how we understand the human brain. He found that from birth until about 7 years old, your brain operates in something called a theta wave state. Think of it like a hypnotic state, like a computer with no firewall and no protection. Everything in your environment and everything that you experience gets downloaded directly into your subconscious mind without a filter and without your permission. At that point, you didn't have a say about what got downloaded into your brain. So if you grew up in a chaotic house like I did, a home where love felt conditional or was completely non-existent, a home where you had to be perfect in order to be accepted, a home where you had to perform in order to be recognized, a home where somebody hurt you and you were helpless, your nervous system wrote what's called a survival script. And that script says, if I can just control everything around me, I can prevent myself from ever being hurt again. If I can achieve success and make lots of money, I'll make people respect me. If I can get a bunch of nice things, I can make people like me. And here's the most dangerous part about beliefs that got installed in survival mode. It doesn't feel like a belief that you're choosing. It doesn't feel intentional. You think it's just your personality. You think it's just the way that life is and the way that it's supposed to be. But it's not who you are. It's a program that you didn't choose, by the way. And all programs can be hacked and can be rewritten. Now, here's where the science gets real. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between back then and right now. It doesn't know that you're a grown man who runs a business. So when you walk through the front door and your wife questions one of your decisions or your kid acts out, your brain's threat detection center doesn't see a normal conversation. It sees disrespect. It sees a threat. It sees chaos incoming. And before your conscious mind even has a chance to make a decision, your body is already in reaction mode. Let me show you why. You've got two main players in your brain. The first one is called the amygdala. Think of this as the brain's alarm system. It's always on and it's always scanning for threats. And the moment that it detects something that looks like danger, it gets triggered fast. We're talking milliseconds here. The second player is the prefrontal cortex. Think of this as the CEO of your brain. It's responsible for logical thinking and your rational decisions. It's the calm, thoughtful version of you. It's your Bruce Banner side. And the amygdala is your Incredible Hulk side. Now, these two parts of your brain are in constant competition with one another. So, who wins most of the time? Well, the alarm system is way faster than the CEO every single time. Let's use another Avengers analogy real quick. This time, let's use Hawkeye, aka Clint Barton. He has no superpowers at all. He's just disciplined and really focused and has an amazing skill of hitting his target. Now, don't get me wrong, Hawkeye can hold his own in almost every situation, but nobody will send Hawkeye to fight the Hulk. Not because Hawkeye isn't a good Avenger, not because he isn't well trained, not because he doesn't want to win, but there's this little thing called physics that is the problem in this situation. No matter how bad Hawkeye wants to, without any extra help, he just wouldn't be able to defeat the Hulk. Does that make sense? That's the exact same scenario that plays out in your brain. That's exactly what happens every time you try to just use willpower to override your nervous system. Willpower is Hawkeye. It's aware, skilled, and disciplined, but it's only in control about 5% of the time. Your subconscious survival programming, that's the Hulk. It controls about 95% of your thoughts, decisions, and life. It doesn't like to negotiate either. It doesn't listen to your intentions. It just reacts to the belief program that is installed in you. So when you break that promise that you made to yourself or your wife and kids, it isn't a sign of weakness. It isn't really a spiritual problem. It exposes that there is a virus corrupting your belief operating system. It's basically like Nick Fury asking Hawkeye to stop the Hulk with nothing but a bow and arrow. See, the thing is, you were never going to win that fight because willpower isn't enough, because discipline isn't enough, and wanting it badly isn't enough either. The only way to stop the Hulk is to heal Bruce Banner. Now, this isn't about a metaphor anymore. This is about the work that needs to be done if you want the outcome that you say you desire. Look, I want to explain what the behaviors like porn, alcohol, drugs, abuse, rage, cheating, numbing, shutting down, escaping, overworking actually are. All of those things are just receipts. Let me show you what I mean. Think about the last time that you took your family out to a nice restaurant. When the waitress brought you the check at the end of the meal, did you get mad at her? No, you didn't get mad because you expected it, right? So what did you do? You probably looked at the receipt to make sure that everything on there is what you actually ordered, right? You would be crazy to be mad at the waitress for leaving the receipt on the table after you've enjoyed a nice meal. So when the receipt came, you accepted it because you knew it was the next logical step, right? That's exactly how your behavior works. Your anger, your emotional distance, your inability to be present, your addiction to numbing behaviors, those aren't personality flaws. Those aren't proof that you're a bad man. Those are just your receipts that your identity and belief system are leaving you for the transactions that you had in your life, the childhood that you survived, the pain that you absorbed, the survival codes that got installed in you before you were old enough to choose them. You've been getting mad at yourself for the receipts, but the transaction happened a long time ago, and now you're being forced to pay the bill. Let me make it easy to understand. The problem was never the anger. The problem was never the pornography. The problem was never the alcohol. The problem was never the workaholism. The problem was never the drugs. The problem was never the yelling and screaming and arguing and all of the promises that you kept breaking. Those are just symptoms. The actual problem or the sickness is the code or the program that is running underneath all of it. The belief system, the pictures in your head, the survival scripts that got written when you were a little boy that are still running the show even though you're an adult now. And you can't get rid of a receipt by ripping it up either, because they'll just bring you out another one that looks identical to the first one, because the transactions would still be the same. So you have to go back and dispute the transactions if you want the receipt to change. You have to go below the surface. The only way to change the fruit that a tree is producing is to change the identity of the tree that is planted. You have to go to the root. You have to face your past, your experiences, your failures, and your trauma head on. And you have to deal with it at the source and then say to it, look, you no longer serve me. For years, I let you limit who and what I can be. For years, you've been running the show. And now I'm kicking you out of the house and I'm changing all the locks on the doors too. So you can't get back in. If you want to kill a tree, you don't kill it by cutting off a branch. You don't kill it by picking off the fruit. You kill a tree by going to the root. You poison its roots or you dig it up, one or the other. Every other solution that you've tried so far, like therapy that tried to help you and your wife communicate better and fix all your problems, books that fired you up for a couple of weeks, watching YouTube videos on fatherhood and marriage and how to break free from porn, drugs, and alcohol. Those were you trying to kill the tree by cutting off its branches. But the tree was still standing because the root was never affected. Does that make sense? So here's the part that most men typically run from. I call it the void. It's the space between who you've been and who you're actually supposed to be. Most men see this void and they run from it. They grab their phone. They turn on the TV and watch sports for hours. They pour themselves a drink. They stay late at the office. They do anything to avoid sitting in it. Because in that space, there's no performance to hide behind, no income to point to, no title that protects you. It's just you. Because here's the thing that most men never seem to understand. The reason your alter ego keeps showing up and the reason why you keep lashing out in anger, the reason why you keep going back to committing those destructive behaviors is because of who you were programmed to be. And because of who you were programmed to be, somewhere along the way, that programming turned into beliefs, and those beliefs got adopted as your identity. That's what we've been talking about. And here's the good news. Just because that's the identity that you've been operating from doesn't mean that it has to be the identity that you keep. Look, you didn't choose that program. It got downloaded into you before you were old enough to know what was happening. Remember, before you even had a filter, before you even had a say, but you get to choose what happens next. The work isn't about going back and reliving the past. It's not about sitting in a room and talking about your feelings for 2 hours a week. The work is this. You identify the program that got installed. You name it. You trace it back to where it came from. And then you say, this program no longer serves me. And it no longer gets to run my life. It no longer gets to dictate my behavior. It no longer gets to make decisions for me and my family. And then you rip it out and you install a new one, a new belief operating system, a completely new identity, one that you choose, one that aligns with the man you actually want to be, the father you want your kids to remember, the husband that your wife deserves. That's identity transformation. And that's exactly what we help you do inside the fatherhood. Look, if you want my help with any of this, ripping out that old code, going on your identity transformation journey, and becoming the man that you desire to be, the man that you and your family need you to be, if you want help overcoming a porn or a drug addiction, if you want help overcoming the limiting beliefs that have a hold on you, if you want to stop self-sabotaging, if you want to finally stop winning at work and losing at home and start winning publicly and privately, then all you got to do is reach out to me. You can do that by going to my Instagram and DMing me the word unbreakable. I got a little automation that'll get a chat going between us. Once you answer a couple of qualifying questions, I'll jump in the chat and me and you will start talking. And if you just so happen to come in at the right time, like right now, for instance, because there's a special offer going on at the time of this video, but this offer won't be around forever. So don't sleep on it. Know whether the special offer is still going on or not, the doors to the fatherhood will always be open. But here's what I need you to know. We only accept 5 new fathers per month. That's it. Just 5. Not because we're trying to be exclusive for the sake of being exclusive, but because that's the capacity that allows us to be truly hands-on with every single man that comes inside the program, so that we can give them the proper attention, the focus, and the help that they need to get the outcome that they're looking for. So if you're ready, go down in the description and click on that link, or like I said, just go to my Instagram and DM me the word unbreakable, and we'll talk. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Marquez, that sounds good, but does identity transformation actually work? Let me answer that one the only way that I know how, and that's with my own story. On my own first identity transformation client, I went through 3 separations. I struggled with porn for years, starting from when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I had rage that I couldn't control. I had destructive behaviors that were hurting my wife and my kids. I was doing church. I tried therapy. I tried counseling. I read books and watched plenty of YouTube videos, and nothing seemed to stick until I stopped trying to treat the symptoms and I started dealing with the root, until I stopped trying to manage the behavior and started transforming the identity underneath the behaviors. And today, I don't watch porn anymore. I don't rage out all the time like I used to. I don't run from hard conversations. I don't stay at work to avoid going home. I don't need those coping mechanisms anymore. Not because I white knuckled my way out of them, but because when the root changed, I didn't need them anymore. And it's not just me. This has worked for men who were abusers, men who were alcoholics, men who were drug addicts, men who were workaholics, who didn't even realize their issues traced all the way back to their childhood, men who had given up on themselves and were ready to quit. Most of the people that I work with like to remain anonymous, of course, and I understand because this is really personal work, but the transformation is very real. And if it's worked for them, it can work for you too. Well, that's if you're willing to do the work like they were and I was. Now I got to be straight with you real quick, because I'm not here to sell you a pipe dream. Will this be hard? Absolutely. Change is hard. Anytime you try to do something different, it's going to be a shock to your system. Your brain is going to try to resist it. Your old code is going to fight back. There are going to be moments where you feel like you're not making any progress. Moments where the old patterns show back up and you feel like you're back at square one. I know, because I've experienced this myself during my own transformation journey. My wife and I had plenty of setbacks, some big, some small. Well, what we found out was they were only big because we made them big. But regardless, those situations took me down. I was low-key depressed for a couple of weeks because I was really trying my hardest. I was doing all of this identity work and something still happened. And that hurt. But here's what that moment taught me. Becoming emotionally healthy isn't a destination. It's an identity. It's who you decide to be. And you can't let one setback turn you back into who you used to be. Because the goal was never to have no more problems. Because the goal was to never have no more problems. The goal is to become the kind of man who handles problems differently than he used to. Your marriage is still going to have hard moments. Your kids are still going to push your buttons and get on your nerves. Life is still going to life. But the difference is you're going to respond instead of react. You're going to lead instead of explode. You're going to be present instead of being checked out. And eventually, you can bring your wife up to your level if she isn't already there now. You can show your kids what a regulated, emotionally healthy man actually looks like. But the only way that you'll be able to do this is if you get out in front and lead, because you can't lead anybody from the back of the line. You got to step out and get in the front. You got to walk the trail first. And then the people who love you will decide to walk it with you. And I know some of you are probably thinking, I hear you, Marquez, but what if I do all of this and it still doesn't work? That's a fair question. Let me answer it the best way that I can. When you join the fatherhood, you have a 14-day money back guarantee. If you decide in those first 14 days that this isn't right for you, you'll get your money back. No questions asked. No hoops to jump through. That's how confident I am that identity transformation will give you the results that you were looking for. Not because I'm perfect, like I already told you before. Nobody is. It's because I've seen what happens when a man actually commits to going down to the root instead of doing the surface level fixes. Now, I got to be honest about one more thing. I can't promise you that I'll save your marriage. I can't promise you that everything will be perfect, because it takes two people to make a marriage work, and your spouse has her own journey. But here's what I can promise you. If you take this work seriously, if you actually do it, you will become the version of yourself that you've been dreaming about. And even if your marriage doesn't survive, the man that you'll become in the process will still be worth it. Because no matter what happens between you and your wife, no matter what happens in your marriage, your kids will still need an unbreakable father. All right, so how does this actually work? The foundation of everything we do inside the fatherhood is built around what I call the trauma framework. That's 6 letters, 6 steps. Each one builds on the last. T stands for triggers. What's actually setting you off? Not just the surface level reactions, but finding the source of those reactions and triggers. R stands for reactions. Reactions are what you automatically do when you get triggered. The explosion, the shutdown, the withdrawal, and helping you see where those reactions actually come from. A stands for acceptance. Owning where you actually are right now, not where you pretend to be, not where you wish you were, where you actually are right now. Because you can't change reality until you face reality. U stands for understanding your emotions, learning to read your own dashboard, because your emotions aren't the enemy. They're just signals. And once you learn what they're actually telling you, you can stop being controlled by them. M stands for mental clearing, removing the old beliefs, the old stories, the old pictures that have been controlling your behavior in the background, clearing out the old code so the new code can be installed. And the second A stands for accountability, because you can't do this alone. I tried to, and believe me, it doesn't work. Now, inside the program, here's what a normal week actually looks like. You'll only be required to invest about 2 to 3 hours a week. That's it. Because I know you're busy. I know you're running a business or have a demanding career. I know you have a family. So all we're asking for is about 2 to 3 hours a week. That's all it takes. When you first join, we're going to be doing about 80% of the heavy lifting. You'll be doing about 20. But as time goes on, that number is going to flip. As you won't really need us as much, you'll be doing about 80% and we'll be doing the 20. We'll just be there for the support and to help you refine. Because the goal isn't for you to need me forever. The goal is for you to become the man who doesn't need a coach to stay emotionally regulated. Because that's just who he is now. That's the beauty of identity transformation. So when you join the fatherhood, you get immediate access to the core identity transformation curriculum. This is the framework that helps you understand where your emotional reactions actually come from and how to rebuild the identity underneath those reactions. You get a one-on-one onboarding call with me personally, where we build your personal transformation plan based on your triggers, your patterns, your marriage, your family, and your life, because your situation is specific. Your triggers are specific, and your plan needs to be too. You get weekly coaching calls. You get what I call a fatherhood reset session. You get access to the fatherhood community. That's what we call our locker room. You get implementation support, an accountability system, and direct access to me between calls. You also get access to our custom AI tools that are trained on our identity transformation frameworks. So when real life happens, or life just gets hard, or when stress hits, or when you get triggered, you won't have to wait until the next coaching call to get some help and some support. These tools help you implement what you're learning in real time so you can stay consistent without adding more overwhelm and stress to your life. You'll get 12 months of active coaching and implementation support and continued access to the community, coaching calls, so that you can continue reinforcing the man that you're becoming. This program was built specifically for busy fathers. The goal is not to give you more information. The goal is to help you become a calmer, more emotionally grounded, and more in control in the moments that matter most. And listen, like I told you before, I can't guarantee you that your marriage will survive because a marriage takes two people for it to work. But I can tell you this, the fathers who do this work become stronger, calmer, more emotionally stable, more trustworthy under pressure. And whether your marriage survives or not, your kids will still need an emotionally grounded father. And you'll still need the ability to lead your family without collapsing under pressure. Because the price of not changing is always higher than the price of doing the work. So if you're ready, go to my Instagram and just DM me the word unbreakable. Or like I said, just look down somewhere in the description and you'll see a link to work with me. Now let me bring this thing full circle. We talked about Bruce Banner and the Hulk a good bit in this video. But why did I use him specifically? Throughout every Marvel movie, Bruce Banner thought the Hulk was a separate person, someone that he had to fight against, someone that he had to try to contain, someone that he didn't like, someone that he was ashamed of, and even afraid of. But in the movie The Avengers Endgame, the Hulk and Bruce Banner had a transformation. What we saw was that Bruce Banner stopped running from his alter ego. He stopped trying to destroy the Hulk. He stopped trying to suppress the Hulk. He stopped pretending that the Hulk didn't exist. And instead, he integrated both of them. He accepted that this was a part of him, that the Hulk wasn't his enemy, and that the Hulk wasn't someone that needed to be defeated, but someone that he needed to accept. And because he accepted it, he was able to transform, and he was able to change his life. He became what we know as the Professor Hulk. He put the brains and the bronze together. And that is exactly what we're attempting to do with you. And it's exactly what healing from trauma actually looks like. Now, I got to keep it real with you because that's always what I'm going to do. Because a lot of people will make you feel like if you heal from trauma, it'll just disappear. But that isn't true. I still deal with it sometimes. I still feel the weight of the things that I went through. But here's the difference. It's not who I am anymore. I'm not that scared little boy. I'm not the little boy who doesn't feel loved. I'm not the little boy who feels insecure. I'm not the little boy who's controlled by his trauma anymore. I get to live with it now in a healthy way because that's what healing actually looks like. It's not getting rid of the experience because you can't do that unless you go back in time. And unfortunately, I don't have or know anybody that has a time machine. You went through what you went through and there's no erasing what happened. But healing means that just because it's a part of you doesn't mean it gets to control you. Doesn't mean that it gets to dictate your actions. And it doesn't mean that it gets to run the show. You get to control you. Just like the Professor Hulk. He didn't get rid of the Hulk. He put the brains and the brawn together. And he upgraded his identity. Now he's the Hulk, but he's always in control. And that's our goal too. Not to erase your past, but to stop letting your past write your future. Because what you believe shapes your behavior. And how you behave consistently over time, it shapes the life that you live. And right now, the beliefs that are shaping your behavior were written by a little boy who was just trying to survive. And now it's time to let the adult in the room have the pen. It's time for you to stop running from your past. It's time to accept every part of who you are and decide that none of it gets to control you anymore. It's time to become the man that you and your family deserves. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel. And if you're a high-performing father who's tired of winning in public and losing in private, if you're tired of your out of control anger, if you're tired of shutting down and running away, if you're tired of self-sabotaging, and you're finally ready to become the father, the husband, and the leader that you know you're capable of being, then click the link in the description below to learn more about working with me in the fatherhood. Or just go to my Instagram, man, DM me the word unbreakable. I've got a simple process that'll help you figure out where you are right now, where you want to be, what's getting in the way, and whether or not I'd actually be able to help you. And if you're not quite ready for that yet, no worries. YouTube has already picked out another video that it thinks that you'll enjoy. So go watch that next. Remember, unbreakable fathers create unbreakable families. Peace.